Welcome to my show, Enlifement. For those of you that don't know me, I am Doc Honeycutt. I am the host of the show, and I want to thank you for joining us. I have a really awesome guest that I don't want you to miss because everybody needs to know about this. We're talking about careers. Choosing the best career and having the best strategy to live an awesome life, doing the things that you want to do. So with that being said, I'm going to welcome my guest to my show, Mr. Jim Deupree. How are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you for joining my platform.
Oh, I'm honored.
I'm honored. It's been, how long have we been trying to do this?
More than a year.
But guess what? We got here. So tell us a little bit about who Mr. Deupree is first, and tell us what you do.
Okay, so who I am is somebody who 10 years ago discovered the sort of pay-it-forward approach to life that says you start by helping figure out how to help somebody versus what can you sell them, and it opened up a whole kind of new world of enjoyable people to be around. Professionally, I've been an IBM executive, worked my way up to an IBM executive. I've started 3 companies of my own and served on boards and written 2 books and done management consulting. So I've kind of done everything that the people I work with are thinking about doing, which has been a great point of reference. And what we do is profoundly change people's lives. We take people that say, I'm showing up for work because I need a paycheck and it has a nice title, but it doesn't necessarily stimulate them. Or maybe it did, but now they're tired of it and they want to think about something else. So what else could they do that would be more rewarding and fulfilling?
Yeah, what else could they do? So how do you get them, how do you structure them to let them know that, you know, there is hope. You can do what you want to do. You can do what you like doing.
It's a really good question. It starts by saying, helping them define what they enjoy most about their work.
Okay.
Everybody has some things they really like, and then they have some things they just have to do. And the idea is the more you can find a role or define a role that is all the things you really like and very few of the things you don't, you're going to enjoy it more. And if you enjoy it more, you're going to do a better job and probably prosper in your career as well. So we go through a whole lot of discernments to say, these are the things that you really enjoy, not just about work, but about life. These are things that are important to you. But you know, some people don't like detail. Some people don't like project management. Other people thrive in it. Some people don't like strategy. Other people, that's all they want to do. So you got to figure out what it is they really enjoy doing. And then part 2 is to open their mind to new thinking. So yeah, you may have had a career in banking, but banking is changing. And it may not be where you want to be anymore. Railroads used to be fun. They changed too. And so what other roles and industries would allow you to take advantage of the things you love doing and you've learned to do and apply those, but in a new and inspiring career? And the last part of that is helping them make that choice happen by making sure they're in the market in the right way through LinkedIn and networking and all these other things. So it's sort of a 3-step process.
So, you know, and it sounds easy, but how do you handle it? Because everybody is not as confident as we are. So I know fear sets in. You know, they're scared that they're going to make another wrong move. So how do you handle that with your clients?
It's really 2 ways. One is, my experience has been, if somebody empowers you to think a certain way, you're going to be more bold than if you're just trying to get there yourself. And so all of our experience and all of our process empowers people to say, you know what, I really can do that. And the other thing is, when you've got somebody in your corner that says, you know, yeah, that's the right thing to do next. That's the right next step to try, versus you're trying to decide if that's really the right step or not, then you're gonna go do it instead of sleep on it another day and another day. And so, because one of the big things we find is people have been talking about this for years, but they haven't really done anything.
Okay.
You know, they've been kind of complaining to themselves or a little voice in their head, but tomorrow hits and next week hits, because they just didn't take action because they weren't sure what step to take.
So now, do you do like an initial consultation on a person?
We talked to them about the whole process, and then the front end of our process is a pretty big step. So to go through that, you have to be a client. But we certainly talk to people and tell them what it's all about, and they need to decide whether it's an investment in them and their future, and is that the right choice for them. So yeah, it's not, and it's not an hourly kind of a thing. You can't do what we do on an hourly basis. So it's a bigger commitment.
So chapter 2, how did you get that name?
It's a good question. I wanted a short, snappy name. There's a restaurant chain in Atlanta that I always liked it because it was Goldfish and Twist, and they were short, snappy names, but they were still food related. And I hate these, Mabel's Cafe or these big long. And so, and then I was meeting with a very high level executive, and she said, my boss, I surprised him by announcing I was going to retire in 5 years, and he said, I wanted to help you define your chapter 2. And I said, that's the perfect name. And I was amazed because it's trademarked. I mean, it was available and it's trademarked. So we got it. I love the name. It's so descriptive. And it's not end of career. It's what should the next step of your career be? So many of our clients are in their 50s, but some are in their 40s, some are in their 30s. Some are in their 60s, kind of rewired, not retired. So it's a whole spectrum.
So that was my next question. I was going to say, who is your focus? So it's somebody that has had a career, but they need the next chapter.
Yeah, our primary focus are people who have been very successful and risen to the executive level. In many of them, the C-suite level. Or another category called the rising executive. So people who are doing well, and they need to decide whether they want to make all the sacrifices to try to get to the top, and what their odds are of getting there if they make all those sacrifices, or they want to just be happy and say, I'd rather trade for a balance of life and think about it that way versus get to the top either because everybody says I should or because it sounds kind of noble, because it's not as pretty as a lot of people think.
Right. So what is the biggest surprise that you see related to careers?
It's how unprepared people are to make a change. So we're in a very dynamic business environment. Companies get bought, sold, industries change, and yet people feel their company is just going to take care of them. They've been loyal, they've worked hard, and the companies are going to take care of them. By the way, except for the millennials. The millennials are great. They just say, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm out of here.
Absolutely.
So they're kind of, and I applaud them for it, frankly. But for other people, and then all of a sudden, many times they have an opportunity to get a package to leave, but they don't know what to do with it because they didn't think ahead. Mm-hmm. Or an opportunity surfaces. So if you thought ahead, you have kind of a plan B. Even when you travel differently, you read differently. You go see things that would potentially be the business that you want to do next. You know that. You do a lot of things, and I'm sure as you pivoted in those things, you started to read differently and make different friends, etc. So when people don't do that, they're just so busy working and they think I'm loyal and the company will take care of me, and then one day they're surprised. So that's the biggest one.
Now, do you do anything with people that have worked these jobs for 25 years and then they decide, well, I want to work for myself now? Is that something that you kind of lead people into as well?
Well, I've started 3 companies on my own.
Absolutely.
So I know what it takes. Mm-hmm. We also know through our discernment work that not everybody's made to be an entrepreneur. And so if somebody's thinking about leaving a corporate life, they need to know whether they're cut out for it or not, because it's a costly mistake if they're not.
Right.
And so we have both the expertise and the knowledge to be able to say, you really can succeed, and then we can surround them with been there, done that people that can help them succeed if that becomes the right answer. So it's also, there's a quick story that I love. So sometimes people think it's all about the job. Mm-hmm. And I had one client I loved who said, I'm actually going to think about this differently. I'm going to think about where do I want to live. And in their case, it was Wilmington, North Carolina. Okay. He loved the arts. He loved sailing. He said, we want to live there. And now the question is, what can I do there to sustain myself? Mm-hmm. And he had never been an entrepreneur. And he had So we went over there to visit and said, I could probably get some roles, and there's a big convention center, and, I could get he'd been a high-level arts director, arts executive. But that's a political appointment. Maybe the mayor would find his own friend later on. So the one thing he could do that he could do as long as he wanted was be an entrepreneur. So in that case, he bought a franchise for the home health care franchise. And not a lot of my clients buy franchises, but that allows him to say he can do that as long as he wants. He can sell the business. He can hire somebody to run it and keep some of the money. And he's in complete control. And he's living where he wants as his first choice. And I think that's a great thought process.
Absolutely. Can we talk just a little bit about your books, your 2 books you got, right?
Yeah, they were strategy books for banks.
Mm-hmm.
So they go back a while. They were kind of at the earlier age of the internet. And banks were just trying to take all those brochures that they stuffed in your mailing and put them on the internet and say, we're on the internet.
Okay.
And they didn't understand the power of engagement, the power to customize information, to gather information from people that were on your website, and to take them to where they wanted to go. So I was trying to wake them up, which is what we do with clients now.
Have to wake them up. So I understand you feel that we have a social challenge developing regarding careers. Is that correct?
We do. So if you ask people today how long they want to work,
Mm-hmm.
The answer is not what our parents would have given. And it is typically 70 plus or as long as I choose. It's not, I can't wait to get to 66 and a half and retire.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge is that the tenure in corporate roles, so these are people, somebody that makes some big money, but they're not going to be allowed to do that. And if they get to their 60s, the likelihood of being told, well, thank you very much for your whatever, but we don't need you anymore, just goes up and up. So now you have a shorter tenure in the role and an increasing age. And they haven't thought through it to say, what do I really want to do to continue being meaningful as long as I want? And we have a term that we love and we work with called rewired, not retired. So they have the money, they can retire financially,
Mm-hmm.
but they would die,
Mm-hmm.
to be blunt about it, without a purpose.
Mm.
So they want to have a meaningful purpose. And so either they wait and nonprofits come to them, or people say, well, why don't you help me with this since you have some time? Or they define what they want to go do that's really meaningful and then make it happen that way.
Okay. So let's just do a little recap.
Okay?
Just in case you're just now joining us, we're live as well. This is Mr. Jim Deupree, and he's a career strategist. And he's just trying to give us he's not just trying, he is giving us some awesome information on transition, from doing something that you've done for like 25 years, 20 years, and you decide, hey, I don't want to do that anymore, but you still want to, you want to go into another career. So he's given us some insight and letting us know that, these things are possible. So just go back a little bit. Tell us about your mission first.
The mission is to profoundly change people's lives by enlightening them about how they could evolve their career, how they could take charge. So we call it setting your compass, setting your career compass, and take charge, and then manage your career yourself instead of assuming that some company will do it for you. That's the mission.
So how do you handle clients that, they feel like they're ready, and once they get out there, they feel like they failed?
I don't know, because that hasn't happened.
Oh, well, good. That is great.
Sorry, but
that's awesome, an awesome outcome. So tell me about the acts that you see in most people's careers.
Yeah, I love that question. So it's related to a white paper that I'd be happy to share with anybody called "Who Moved My Career Cheese." It may be on our website, by the way, chapter2.net. But Act 1 of our career is we're busy climbing the ladder. So we're making sacrifices. We're for our kids and our family. We want to see how far we can get. And so we're missing a lot of birthdays and ball games and then when we're on vacation, we're in conference calls or taking calls, and so it's easy for the family to say, Daddy's always working, or Mommy's always working. But it's natural. It's a natural kind of part of, I've got to see how far I can go, and I've got to find my way in the world. Then people start drawing a line in the sand. And typically it happens in the 40s, and the line in the sand is, I'm either not going to work for a company whose ethics I don't appreciate anymore, or I'm not going to move my family one more time when my kids are in high school. And if that costs me the next rung on the ladder, or all the rest of the rungs, that's okay, because that's more important. And the last rung is, it's more about my legacy than my resume. So I've had a good life, I've enjoyed things, but I don't know that I want my epitaph or my family's memory to be that I made mufflers all my life, or I was the president of a muffler company. I'd like to be known for something that's more profound than that I made a difference that's a legacy to humanity. And so they begin to think in those terms, and it's now how do they channel their enormous talents and resources into such a cause.
Okay. So, I know we've talked about this, but like I said, we've done a little recap. Can people really change their career track?
They really can, much more than they realize. And it's surprising because we, as we go through this process, we prescriptively tell people that this is what you should focus on, and this is what you should avoid. And these are very successful people. And it's almost always one or two really big surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example of one and it was a wonderful lady. She had started life as a forensic accountant, absolutely loved it, married, had a couple kids, husband got transferred to Charlotte. There wasn't a realistic base for forensic accounting. So she took her financial activities and became a CFO for a nonprofit. Loved it the first 2 or 3 years because she was kind of building up everything, but then it became routine. Mm-hmm. She showed up every day and it was just, turning the crank. And she said, I just need to go do more. Luckily she had some flexibility financially, and she wanted to write.
Okay.
And so she thought about being an author and writing a novel, and then went through several different iterations, and now she has a cooking kind of podcast for people that have that need to have limitations in their diet that she does with her kids.
And she loved that.
And
absolutely,
she absolutely loves it, and so do other people.
That is pretty awesome, because like I said, I just really could not imagine getting up, going somewhere I don't want to be. Like, oh God, I gotta go to this job again. That's just...
Well, and the other example, Dr. D, is another woman I heard speak who, she's a global speaker. She goes all over the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm literally all over the world all the time. And in a moment of candor, she said, I do enjoy speaking, and I'm successful at it. I'm making a good career at it. But I come home Friday afternoon and become a complete puddle. I'm just absolutely melt, and I don't become a human again until Sunday afternoon. Now, who wants that? Right. I mean, what amount of success says there's no life there, mm-hmm. right? And there are a lot of people doing that. They're stressed in ways that they don't realize from their job, either from politics or performance or the fear of losing their job. And so they have all this stress, and the family can feel it, and they feel it, and it affects their health.
Yes, it does.
And yet they keep hanging on to the nice title in the check.
So sad.
So we have consistently proven that we can take people and pivot them to something else, and that they will really enjoy.
Pretty awesome. I mean, before I met you, I didn't even know that there was a service like this that exists, but that's pretty cool.
I think it's very cool.
And then you can see, the things that you've talked to a person about, you can, see them come into play. That's even cooler.
And they become friends, and we stay in touch. I mean, it's a small group of clients, and we become good friends, and we keep them connected, and then they help each other too, which is neat.
So you should do like speaking engagements at churches. Like if you're not happy with your job, I have a service that I can help you to choose the right career that you would like to do for the rest of your life.
Most churches don't want commercials, but it's funny you say that. There's a book called Halftime by Bob Buford, and it talks about the fact you will have motivation, you'll have a desire to change. And there's actually a religious group, or a religious-oriented group that comes together to help people do that. The problem with it is it doesn't really tell you how to get it done. It just tells you you're going to develop these feelings, and it's okay to develop these feelings. And I have actually spoken to a couple of those groups at church and around some other places, and kind of on a theme of will your career surprise you? Because we've seen so many things, we can predict surprises that people are going to experience even before they experience them.
So you say you worked for, you built 3 companies.
Right.
So you build those companies. After you build them, did you stay in it for a little while and decide, oh, I don't want this anymore? Is that how you?
Well, the first 2. The third one's the one is chapter 2.
This is the third one. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I love chapter 2.
I know. This is your baby.
Right.
So tell my viewers how this interest of helping others with careers came about then, once again.
It was, I was running the second company, and I was invited to speak to a company that does career transitions, so for CEOs and CFOs. And so I did that, and then they said, we have a set of advisors, mentors, career mentors they call them, that would help challenge the box they were putting themselves in, help them critique their message, and help connect them with their own network. And would you consider being one of those mentors on a purely volunteer basis? So I did that for 18 months, and I loved it. And one day they said, hey, you seem to love this, and the clients love you. Why don't you stop that other stuff and come run the center? So I did that for 5 years. It was owned by a private equity group, and they were more worried about how many pencils I bought than the substance of what we were doing. So I left and formed Chapter 2 7 years ago.
So can we talk a little bit about the career cheese again, and the cheese is still moving? I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, so everybody's career cheese moves all the time. I mean, it moves because industries change. It moves because you get a new boss that you don't like nearly as much as the last one, so all of a sudden the job you were happy in becomes a less happy job. It changes because you need to change. You need to, like a lot of roles today need a lot of technology awareness, and CMOs, chief marketing officers, for example, are losing their roles. It's the lowest age ceiling role of any, in my opinion, because perception is you have to really understand all the digital media things and how people interact with them. And so how do you keep yourself current? And then, as we mature, we also don't necessarily want to spend half our life on airplanes, particularly with all the challenges today and being away from our families. And so all those factors are at work. So they're all pressing on saying, am I enjoying the work I do? For it's what it is, and then also for what it's doing to my family. So you got to think about that and say, to be honest, it's time to at least think about it. If I think about it and say, I'm going to consciously say, what else could I do? And would I like that better? Even if I stay where I am, the fact that I thought about that allows me to enjoy it more because I've gone through a process and I made a conscious choice.
Right. So you had 2 more graphs as well.
I did.
So can we go over another one?
Sure. You like that? So the second one is called passion versus purpose. So if you're going to change what you're doing, then it's a series of, you'll see these circles up there that says these are the factors. Part of it is what you can get paid for, but part of it is what you love. And it's like 8 different things. And that's the thing we think should be part of anybody's thought process about defining the next step in their career. And the last one is a balance triangle. And it's, as I talk to people and say, are you happy? And by the way, 70% of American workers today are disengaged from the workforce. It's a stunning statistic.
Yes, it is.
But this triangle says economic reward, balance of life, and enjoyment of the role. And so if you ask people to be honest and say, where are you in that triangle? Most people are closest to the economic reward part. Their dot would be or either on that or very close to it. You say, where do you want to be? It would be closer to the balance of life and enjoyment part. So if the two dots don't line up, then the question is, what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. You're going to dribble or you're going to shoot.
Right.
So, time is kind of dwindling down a little bit. But
I'm having fun. Are you having fun?
You know time flies when you do have fun, Mr. Deupree. I told you, I was like, the time's going to go fast. Didn't I tell you that?
You did tell me that.
See, and I was right. It goes fast. But we're going to show those graphs on the show as well. So you have to watch the show on Wednesday to see everything that he just talked about. It's a lot of information to digest, as he's telling you. But you can actually get a visual of the printouts on my show on Wednesday. So, like I said, time is winding up. Can you give us like some last minute tips that people need to hear? They need to hear this stuff. This is some good stuff.
Take charge of your career.
Tell them.
Take charge of your career. Have a plan B. And don't be afraid, because you can do it and it can open your world.
Fear. People that, if you have fear, that can hold people back from a lot of things. And my motto is giving up is not an option. You can do anything that you set your mind to. Anything.
And they can find a lot of information. It's chapter2.net, not .com, .net, and it's TWO, so just chapter TWO.
And also tell them how they can find you if you want to be found.
Well, you'll find all our contact stuff on the website. So
Okay.
it's got a lot of good information, and there's an easy way that says, how do you want to be contacted, and we'll reach out to you promptly. So that's the best way.
Okay.
Okay?
Good. Yeah. So, any last encouraging words?
No, you do wonderful work, and just thank you. I'm honored to have been invited to be part of your show.
Thank you so much for coming. That's our show this afternoon, you all. You can join me right here every Wednesday. This is a winning Wednesday on the radio, on the Wake Up Call TV and radio network. When I say, man, I keep saying it, I keep stressing, growing. We are, you know how the old saying, growing like weeds. We growing like weeds, y'all. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
Will you come back?
I will.
All right. So you heard it here first from Mr. Jim Deupree. Y'all have a nice evening, okay?
I'll bring Betsy next time.
Yay.